Zone 6B Gardening here to share my experience, tips and tricks, and regrets with chip drop. So I was hesitant to get chip drop simply because I was pretty sure I wasn't going to have any help, and I was worried about being able to do it by myself. And that was the first regret that I have. I wish I'd ordered this sooner because it was way more manageable than I thought it would be. And I'm going to talk about why, get into some tips and tricks, and talk about my experience. Now, first things first, I put in my chip drop order in like early spring, and I got no one to come with zero donation. So then I bumped up my donation to $20, no logs, no one came. And finally I bumped it up to $40 and I would accept logs. And then a couple days later, someone came and dropped off my first chip drop. The arborist called me ahead of time, which I appreciated. They came around 1 o'clock, knocked on my door, confirmed where I wanted the wood chips, and then were very, very careful to make sure that they didn't block me in the driveway and that I could come in and out easily in my driveway, which I really, really appreciated. I think it's really important if you're getting a chip drop that you have a place that you can put the wood chips, that you don't have to rush to fully clear out if you're doing this yourself, because it is so much less stressful to be like, okay, it's okay if the pile's still there. It's okay if the pile's still there. And just do it one load as you can at a time. I got about 5 cubic yards in my first chip drop, and that took me 90 loads with my 6 cubic foot wheelbarrow. And I'll talk about why I think that is in a minute. But the wood chips were from a hackberry tree, I believe, and there were lots of big sticks, chunks, and leaves. I got these in mid-spring. They stayed fresh for a couple of days until it rained, and that's where I'll give you my first tip, especially if you're doing this by yourself, which is when you get your wood chips, look at your forecast, see when it's going to rain, and then try to prioritize as much as possible, moving as many wood chips as possible to the locations that are furthest away from the pile until before it rains. Because the wood chips got so much heavier and so much harder to work with when they were wet, and they stayed wet for what felt like weeks. The whole time that I was moving them after it had rained, they were wet. And that's great, because you want your wood chips to hold water. They're going to help with water retention in your garden and reduce your watering bill, whatever. They were way heavier after it rained. So move them as fast as possible before it rains, as much as possible. And also, if you're like me and you're going to use some of those wood chips as bedding in your chicken run, I tried to move as much of that into the chicken run as possible before it rained too, because I didn't want moldy wood chips, because after it rained, the wood chips got moldy very fast, and it got to a point where you couldn't chip away at the pile without constant clouds of mold going out into the air. And I think that that's a great time to move into the gear and things that made it a lot easier to work with the wood chips. With the mold spores going up into the air, a mask was a non-negotiable. I saw someone did actually get sick from moving the wood chips without a mask. Because of the mold spores. So a mask was a non-negotiable. Glasses were also really important, especially when the wood chips were dry. I noticed a lot of debris in the air that I couldn't fully see, but definitely got into my eye a few times and irritated my eyes. So I started wearing safety goggles after that because it was so frustrating. And that takes me to gloves too. One of the times I left my 10-tine fork in the wood chip pile, and when I went to grab it, it was covered in ants. So having gloves kind of made me feel a little bit protected from like bug situations like that. That takes me to non-negotiables. You absolutely want to use a 10-tine bedding fork. A shovel maybe can work, but the 10-tine bedding fork just went into the wood chip pile like butter and was able to shovel out the wood chips like butter. Just do yourself a favor and invest in it. And also, please do not think that you're going to do this without a wheelbarrow. I've seen some people talk about it. I tried to do like a few loads with just like a plastic bin, and that was a pain for no reason. Just use a wheelbarrow. It's going to make it so much easier. Now, I did try to get wood chips from arborists working around my area before committing to chip drop. Contacted them. I stopped by them and said, hey, when you're done, I'm right down the street. Can you drop the wood chips off? And the arborist said yes. And I was so excited, and then they never came. if you want to know where I put my wood chips because you're nosy like me, I ended up applying a large amount around one of my beds that I want to be perennial. So around my raspberry bushes, my cherry bushes. I also applied some to some like other areas that I want to plant out into. The key thing here was I was trying to apply the wood chips to areas that I knew I didn't want to seed into this season. So areas that maybe I want to seed into for cold stratification in the fall, or areas that I want to seed into in the spring. That way the wood chips have some time to break down, and I'm not trying to plant directly into wood chips, because I did try that. That is impossible. Don't try it. Trust me, it doesn't work. Unless you found a way to make it work, and then let me know in the comment section down below, but I haven't been able to find a way to make it work. So I also, again, applied a bunch in the chicken run before it rained. And I also have some areas where I noticed some soil erosion, like on the side of my chicken coop that doesn't have any gutters. So rain was just washing off of the roof into this area that was starting to kind of degrade and slope. I put a massive amount of wood chips over there, and it helped so much with getting the ground up higher and making it easier to reach the chicken coop. And hopefully that will also act as a way to prevent further erosion until I can figure out the water management system over there. But that's where I applied my wood chips. So overall, I'm really glad that I ended up going with Chip Drop. I ended up paying $40 for 5 cubic yards of nice wood chips, and they were a lot easier to move than I thought they would be. Again, to summarize my tips, make sure you've got a 10-tine bedding fork. It makes it so much easier. You cannot do this without a wheelbarrow. Make sure you have one. You're going to want a mask, because when it rains, that wood chip pile will get very moldy. And finally, make sure that you move as many wood chips as fast as possible, as far away from the wood chip pile as possible before it rains, because the wood chips do get heavier and it wears you out way faster. And that was my experience with Chip Drop. If you have any questions, let me know in the comment section down below. If you have any tips or tricks that I missed, also leave them in the comment section down below. And all of that said, this is 6B Gardening. I will see you when I see you.